All right, so today we are going to work with adding, operations with real numbers. So really, a lot of what today is going to be 100% review, and most of really what we do, you're probably going to end up doing probably on your calculators. We're just going to look at, the different operations. We've got 3 operations. So we're going to add real numbers today. We're going to subtract real numbers today. We're going to find the distance between 2 points on a number line. And then we are also going to work on multiplying real numbers and dividing real numbers by finding really the reciprocals. So first and foremost, adding real numbers. How do you add real numbers? Well, you get out your calculator, I suppose. But there's 2 different ways you can do it. If they have the same sign, you're just going to add them. If they have different signs, technically speaking, you have to find the absolute value of the number and subtract the smaller from the larger. But again, you're probably going to get out your calculator anyway. I'll show you how to do it mathematically, but whatever. So let's look at a couple of examples. So let's go with -6 plus -13. Now you notice that these two, they have the same sign. So then technically what you're going to do mathematically is you're going to take the absolute value of -6, which is 6. You're going to take the absolute value of 13, which is 13. You're going to add them together to get 19. But then since they both have a symbol of negative, that's the symbol that you're going to give them. So the answer to this is -19. Again, you're probably going to grab your calculator and use that, which is certainly something that, obviously at this point would certainly encourage you to do. So what if they have different signs? So let's say we have something like, I'll do it in red. Let's say we have something like -4 plus 13, and we want to figure out what that equals. Again, obviously what you're probably going to do is get out the calculator, but mathematically what you're going to do is you're going to take the absolute value of the bigger one minus the absolute value of your smaller one. So the absolute value of 13 is 13. The absolute value of your other one is 4. You're going to subtract 13 minus 4, which is 9. And then the sign is going to be the sign of the larger of the 2 numbers. So since the 13 is positive, that means that my answer itself is going to be positive as well. Okay, so that's adding if they have the same sign or if they have different signs. Or what about subtraction? What are you going to do with subtraction? Well, technically with subtraction, what subtraction means is if I take A minus B, that's equivalent to taking A plus the additive inverse of B. So you can change subtraction questions into addition problems and then work them out with addition by just saying we're going to add the additive inverse to it, which is something that, you really, in your head, you're going to do probably anyway. Most of the time, you're just going to probably, again, break out your calculator. But if we think about it mathematically, we have to be able to do these different types of things mathematically as well. So let's say that we are going to do something like, I don't know, -6 minus 5. And we want to figure out what that's equal to. Well, if we use the rule above, we're going to leave the first thing alone, which is -6. the subtraction is going to become addition, and we're going to do the additive inverse to 5, which is negative 5. Now we use the addition rules because they're both the same. You're just going to go the absolute value of negative 6 plus the absolute value of negative 5, so 6 plus 5, which is equal to 11, and then they're going to take the sign that it is. So if we have negative 6 minus 5, in reality our answer is just going to be negative 11. And that's really how all subtraction problems really can be done, by taking that and using kind of what we call the additive inverse for that. Okay, so let's look at another one. Negative 9 minus 4. Again, what's that going to equal? Well, let's make it a little more difficult. Why don't we add another one in there? Let's add another one in here and put minus negative 3 plus 6. Figure out what that is equal to. Well, because we've got a minus, we're going to leave the first one alone. So this is going to be minus 9. I'm going to change the minus to a plus sign, and I'm going to change the 4 to its additive inverse, which is negative 4. Again, I've got a minus sign, so I'm going to change that to a plus sign, and I'm going to make this the additive inverse of negative 3 is just 3 plus 6. Okay. Now, we got to kind of follow order of operations and add them together. Negative 4 plus negative 9, you've kind of put that together. That's negative 13. So I'm going negative 13 plus 3 plus 6. Those have the same sign, so negative 13 plus 9. So they have different signs, so 13 minus 9 is 4. The 13 is bigger, so our answer to that is going to be negative 4. So again, that's kind of the long, drawn-out mathematical way of what subtraction means as far as doing the additive inverse pieces to this. How are you going to do it? 99% of you are probably going to do, I would probably say 100% of you are probably going to go about and just do this via your calculator, and there's certainly nothing wrong with that. In fact, that's really how I would expect you to do it, really, kind of at this point. So there's the second part. Whoops. I need to get somewhere on this a little bit here. All right, so the next thing that we have to talk about is we have to talk about the distance. So that's our next objective, the distance between 2 points. So remember, distance between 2 points is how far these 2 points are apart from each other. And essentially what it means is it means you're going to take the absolute value, of those different points. Evidently, my daughter just sent me an attachment of something. I don't know what it was, so I might have to edit that out as I make the video. Things kind of happen in here. Anyway, so we're going to find the distance, between points, kind of on that number line. So let's say that we have this number line here, and we've got the point negative 6, and we've got the point 4, and we want to find the distance between those 2 points. Well, the distance between those 2 points is really going to be the absolute value of this plus the absolute value of that. So we're going to do the absolute value of negative 6 plus the absolute value of 4. So 6 plus 4, so the distance between those 2 points is 10. So it's the absolute value of the first plus the absolute value of the second when you're looking for distance between 2 points on a number line. Okay, so let's look at another one. Let's look at the distance between negative 18 and 3. So in this case, again, we've kind of got that negative going on, so we're going to go the absolute value of negative 18 plus the absolute value of 3. So 18 plus 3 is 21. So the distance between those 2 points is 21. Now, what happens if they are on the same side? say we've got the 4 and 8. Obviously, if I try to do absolute value of 4 plus the absolute value of 8, that's 12, so that's probably not the solution. So if they're on the same side of the number line, really what you're going to do is you're going to do the absolute value of the bigger number minus the smaller number. So in this case, it's 4. So if they're on the same side, take their absolute values and add them. If they're on different sides, take the bigger number minus the smaller number, and then the absolute value of that. And you really should be kind of good to go as far as distance on the number line. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is multiply and divide, essentially. So when you multiply on the number line, remember, if they have the same sign, you're going to have positive, and they have different sign, it's going to be negative. And really, this is if it's even, and this is if it's odd. So if you have an odd number of negative signs, it's going to be negative. If you have an even number of negative signs, then it's going to be positive. So if I have something like negative 8 times 5, I've got different signs. I've got one negative sign. So that tells me that this is going to be negative 40. And again, more than likely, you are going to use your calculator. In this case, I've got 3 negative symbols. So 3 is negative, odd. So this is going to be negative. 6 times 5 is 30 times 9 is 90. So you're going to get your solution for that one to be 90, and so on and so forth. Remember, when you're multiplying fractions, if we take something like 3/4 times negative 16, let's make it negative 3/4. When you're multiplying fractions, I can rewrite negative 16 as negative 16 over 1. And then when you multiply fractions, you take the top times the top, and the bottom times the bottom. So negative 3 times negative 16, negative times negative is going to be a positive. So that's 48. Bottom times the bottom is 4. 48 divided by 4 is 12. Yep. So your answer for that is going to be 12 when you multiply fractions. Okay. The other thing, you have to be able to divide fractions as well. Again, the signs are the same. If you have 2 negatives, it's a positive. If you have 2 positives, it's a positive. If you have different signs, then it's going to be negative. Obviously, you can get the easy ones, 28 divided by negative 7. I mean, that's pretty straightforward. 28 divided by 7 is 4. One is positive and one's negative, so you're going to get negative. The part where the division becomes a little bit more difficult is if you're dividing by a fraction. Say we have 28 divided by 3/4. Well, another way to write this is 28 divided by 3/4. Those things are equivalent to each other. Now, we're not allowed to divide by fractions. So since we can't divide by fractions, we're going to change it into a multiplication problem. And we're going to multiply by what we call the reciprocal. The reciprocal turns the numerator into the denominator and the denominator into the numerator. So 3/4 becomes 4/3. Now you put this over 1. And now you just do top times the top. 28 times 4. You grab a calculator, which you probably already just did it in your calculator anyway. You get 112. Bottom times the bottom is 3. Reduce it if you can. In this case, it would reduce to 37 1/3, or something like that. Or just leave it as 112 over 3 or 37.3 repetin. Something like that, kind of as far as things go. So that's dividing. A couple other things as far as dividing goes. If you take 0 divided by something, that's okay. The answer is just 0. what you can't do and what mathematically we're not allowed to do is we're not allowed to divide by 0. You can't divide by nothing. So if you get this, this is undefined. Okay, so that's kind of that undefined piece of the world. So there's adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing. Just kind of keep in mind as you're going through this, I guess one more thing with fractions, I want you to keep in mind that this, and this, where I put that negative, as long as there's one negative in there and y doesn't equal 0, all of these things are essentially the same. It doesn't matter kind of where we put them. It just kind of is what it is. So there's today, adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing. It really, if you opened up the homework like you probably should have prior to watching the video, you probably went through this without even needing, me to talk, because this is, this is stuff you've done for a long time. So that does it for today. I don't know what day of the week it is. This is going to show Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, probably Thursday for some of you, Friday for as others of you. I believe if you're in the hybrid group, you're probably the ones watching this. I believe you've got a quiz coming up. Hang on here, let me pull this up. Actually, you'll have a quiz review for the hybrid tomorrow. So this is going to form Thursday, the 5th. Hybrid group, you're going to do a review online, and then as soon as you're done with that review, you're going to go ahead and take the quiz. Yeah, so that does it. So have a good day.